It's a new month, spring has officially sprung, which means it's time for a What's New from Hermes update. In these videos, we discuss the latest and greatest Hermes launches that you can expect to see on shelves. So if you are planning a trip to your local Hermes boutique, I hope this sneak peek will help you figure out what you can expect to see and what pieces you could potentially add to your wish list. So if you would like to hear my thoughts on the latest Hermes launches, including shoes, accessories, SLGs, and even bags, then make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet, and keep on watching. Let's dive straight in and not waste any time, because when I tell you that this list is never ending, it really seems like it. I tried to compile all the latest and greatest pieces, and we have a lot to get through. Even though not all of these are new for this current season, some of them were supposed to launch last year, but if you know anything about Hermes, you'll know that they are not known for being punctual with their launches. So before we get into any of the new shoes, because we usually start with shoes, I wanted to share with you the color of the season when it comes to specifically their shoes. Last year, you may remember that we had a ton of different designs in the color Doré, which was the color of the year. Doré was basically this beautiful metallic gold shade that was in celebration of the Faubourg Boutique's 100-year anniversary, which was the overarching theme of 2024. Even though we are in 2025 now, we are still getting new pieces in this beautiful eye-catching shade, but we have a new color on our palette, which Hermes seems to be going crazy for, which is the color Beige Perlino, I hope I pronounced it right, which is this really light shade of nude. Obviously, there are a ton of different shades of nude depending on your complexion, but this is a really light ivory nudie shade, and we are getting a ton of different leather shoes in this color, including things like the Osmios, the Oran. We are also getting some ballet flats in the women's collection in this particular color. So if you love a really light beige neutral, this is a color that I would highly suggest that you look into, and you'll definitely find some of your favorite Hermes classics available in this color. But with that out of the way, let's move on to some of the new styles, starting with one which is actually not a brand new design. It's something that first launched earlier last year, but it is very much on trend. If you keep up with the latest shoe trends, you have probably noticed all these ballet slipper inspired shoes, not only ballet flats, but also these really slim low profile sneakers, which the jet sneakers very much play into. It's a pair of shoes that I first bought last year. I really liked the look of them. They are incredibly comfortable. It's a style that they offer both for men and women. And if you're into this trend of these really slim, really delicately done sneakers, the jet sneakers would be a great option, which I feel are not too trend oriented like the Dries Van Noten sneakers, which I feel like are the definition of these ballet flat inspired sneakers. They have a similar look and feel to them, but they are not overly trendy, which I think is very much representative of Hermes. These would be a great one for you to look into. They offer these in nylon, in leather, in suede, and also in canvas for this current season. And speaking of trends, there is also the Cleo slingback, which is of course part of their women's collection, and it is a pair of slingback ballet flats with a larger H buckle and contrast piping. I love how they have a little bit of hardware on these ballet flats, which makes them feel a little bit more substantial. Hermes offers several different ballet flats this season. The Cleo, I think, is going to be the most universally flattering. They also have some that are a little bit more utilitarian. You know what those kind of remind me of? Those mesh ballet flats. You know how some people love running barefoot, or like they have those shoes that are supposed to imitate running barefoot. Don't get me started on those. I find them hideous looking. But if that's an aesthetic that you personally appreciate. There's no judgment here. You spend your money on whatever you want to. If that organic bohemian look is what you're into, they do have some different ballet flats, but the Cleo ones I think would be the most universally flattering pair, which, believe it or not, is also available in that new beigey ivory shade. And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, I think a lot can be said about Hermes' shoes, but sexiness is not the first thing that comes to mind. Their shoes tend to be a little bit more conservative, a little bit more mature and reserved, even though they do some heels that are a little bit higher. So for example, they offer their Joy heels with a 105 heel, which still features the signature H motif. But for this current season, they are doing a new pair of heels, which are called the Karma heels, which are definitely a lot bolder, a lot more unique, and a lot more sexy, even if I say so myself. They have this incredible hand woven, or I should say hand braided, leather detail and leather tassels, which out of all things are actually inspired by one of their signature scarf prints called the Coupe de Fouette. I believe that's how it's pronounced, Coupe de Fouette scarf print, which pays tribute to an Art Nouveau building in Belgium. I find it fascinating how Hermes is able to interpret these really unique inspirations into so many different things. So it was not only an inspiration for a scarf, but also for a pair of shoes, which you can definitely see how they were inspired by these really unique whiplash lines for this particular design. So if you're into your heels, this would be something very, very special for you to look into. It's a seasonal launch that you will not see around for long. And then last but not least, something that I'm not as much of a fan of is their new Keep sneakers. I don't really get the name because I don't even want to keep talking about these sneakers, let alone keep them in my collection. To me, these shoes are just so chaotic looking. It's kind of a weird hybrid of a pair of mules and a pair of sneakers. So it's kind of a backless sneaker, which I would love if they did not keep the shoelace detail, but because they did, it just kind of reminds me of people who cannot be bothered putting their feet into their shoes. So instead, they just slide their feet into their shoes and they destroy the heel of a pair of regular sneakers. To me, these shoes just look really chaotic and just odd. I don't really get them. Let me know what you think about these Keep sneakers, but as I told you, I do not want to keep talking about them, so let's move on to some of the new accessories that are out now. As I mentioned earlier, 2024 was all about celebrating the Faubourg boutique, and even though we've moved on and it's now 2025, we are still seeing launches that were inspired by the theme of last year, pieces that were supposed to launch last year, but we are just now finding them on shelves. Even though this is a piece that did start dropping last year, we are now getting them in more colors. I don't think it's going to be everyone's cup of tea, but if you're really into this trend of over accessorizing your bags, perhaps you're inspired by the way Jane Birkin used to carry her bags, this could be a really quirky piece to add to your bag charm collection, which is a little horseman. It's inspired by the iconic horseman that is perched on the rooftop of the Faubourg boutique. And it not only pays tribute to that detail of the Faubourg boutique, but it is also inspired by different facets of Hermes' history. So the body of the horseman is in the shape of the leather clochette that you'll get with a Birkin or a Kelly, and then the feet are in the shape of a horseshoe. Now, this is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, especially for the price, because I believe this bag charm will set you back 1,400 euros, so it's not for the faint of heart. But if you're really into dressing up and accessorizing your bags, this could be a special piece to have in your arsenal. And speaking of Faubourg inspired pieces, there are two more things that I wanted to put on your radar. If you feel like you missed the party and you did not get to join the celebration last year, were you not? Because there are still pieces launching in the iconic doré metallic color, including the Constance Slim wallet, which I have a dedicated review on. I bought this wallet when it first launched. To me, it's one of those pieces that is not really an SLG, but it's not a bag either. It's somewhere in between. It's basically a really elaborate piece of SLG, which is also reflected in the price. But if you love a really elaborate card holder, one that features the iconic H motif of the Constance bag, it is now available in the eye-catching shade of Doré. And if you're looking for something a little bit more simple, well, a lot more simple and a lot more utilitarian, Hermes a few years ago launched some mega safe card cases which you can snap onto the back of your phone. They initially came out with some really simple designs, one of which was actually featured in the last season of the White Lotus. There were actually quite a few Hermes pieces hidden in that show, and I was wondering if you would be interested hearing my thoughts on some of the Hermes pieces or perhaps some of the other luxury pieces that were featured in that show. If it's something that you would like to see from me, let me know in the comment section and we can definitely do a really fun, chatty video about some of my favorite luxury pieces in that show, including some of the hidden Hermes pieces that the main characters wore. But the Mega Safe phone case was one of the pieces featured in that show, which they are offering in some new colors and some new motifs for this current season. There are 3 animal inspired Mega Safe cases. There is an octopus, there's a frog, there's a zebra, and then my favorite is the one that's inspired by the facade of the Faubourg boutique, which happens to be the most expensive one, which is not surprising. I tend to go for the most expensive pieces unintentionally, but that's usually the case. The piece that I like the most is usually the most expensive one. I think the one with the facade of the Faubourg boutique is just around 800 euros. So it's definitely a pretty penny to spend on a single card holder. But if it's something that you use already and you are into these stack accessories, this could be a good one to invest in, especially considering that it's not really specific to your phone. It's not like a phone case. So when you get a new phone, it would essentially become useless because a phone case is very specific to your phone. This is something that you can snap onto and snap off of any one of your phones that features a MagSafe case or the MagSafe technology, which I don't think Apple is going to get rid of anytime soon. So this could be a good compromise to just invest in a less expensive phone case if you're someone who gets a new phone quite regularly, and use this as an add-on or as an extra accessory that you can carry with you and switch in between your phones. Staying on the topic of card holders, you are most likely going to be familiar with the Kavi card case, which is one of the most simple card cases out there. It is a great way for you to experiment with different colors and Hermes leathers, especially if you're new to the world of Hermes, or maybe if you really love a specific color but you don't feel like spending a fortune on a bag in that color. A Kavi is a great way to add a special color to your collection, and a couple of years ago they came out with the Kavi Duo. The Kavi card case has this sort of origami shape to it. It is a simple sheet of leather that is folded in the shape of an envelope, but the Kavi Duo has an additional pocket in there just so it is a little bit easier and a little bit more neat to organize. And for this current season, they're doing them with some fun spring inspired prints in Swift leather. Again, we have some animal inspired prints. We have one in pink with an owl on it. There is a yellow Kavi Duo in Swift with a panther print. And then there is a white card case with a horse on it. So if you love your Kavi Duos and you're into these cartoonesque, quirky little prints, this could be something interesting for you to explore. And then last but not least, before we move on to some other accessories, there is a new wallet that is launching, and out of all things, it is actually inspired by Hermes's iconic Chantank collection, but not the Chantank motif, but the closure that you'll find on Chantank pieces of jewelry, which is this really beautiful T-bar closure. That's what this new range of SLGs feature, and I think there is a jewelry case, a pouch bag, and a card holder in this collection. The card holder is my personal favorite, and I don't think I mentioned this, but this new collection is called the Glenan collection. and the wallet comes in a handful of different shades. I think it is made of Swift leather, and it comes in at 1,300 euros, which is definitely a lot of money to spend on a card holder. But if you love Hermes' craftsmanship, but you're tired of seeing the same age-inspired fastenings or the Kelly twist closure, this is something really unique, special, but also elaborate and intricate. I think there are very few Hermes pieces of SIG that feature this level of craftsmanship when it comes to the hardware. Now, I don't think this is the most practical for a piece of SIG because I can see how it would be quite time consuming to open and close this wallet every single time. But if it's not a concern for you, if it's more of a stylistic choice rather than a functionality first piece, there's no doubt this is quite a piece. This next piece, I'm not sure if you would consider this an SLG, if you would consider this a bag accessory, or maybe a tiny little bag, because it's kind of priced like one. But Hermes has a new micro Kelly bag charm, let's just call it a bag charm, which is the Kellyfestival bag charm. Yeah, let's just say it is a bag charm. It's made of Swift leather, and it is a tiny itty bitty take on the Kelly bag. It kind of reminds me of the Kelly Twilly. Who remembers that tiny little bag charm that I bought a few years ago at this point? Quite a few years ago. In fact, I think that piece is from 2020, which was a really beautiful miniature shrunken Kelly bag, which even though they said was functional, it really didn't fit much. Whereas this is slightly bigger. It again features the same hand molded hardware detail, which is inspired by their watchmaking. Obviously, Hermes has to create some really fine, delicate, tiny little details for their watches, and that's the craftsmanship that inspired the hardware of these miniature Kelly pieces. So there's definitely a lot that goes into the creation of these pieces. It's slightly bigger, it's functional, so in theory you could put things like your AirPods in there or some little bits and bobs that you don't want to lose sight of, but it's more of an accessory rather than a functional piece. It's made of Swift. It comes in a handful of different colors, including new white, rose sakura, gold, black, and yellow. I think at first it was only available in black, but it is being introduced in some new shades, including very popular shades like rose sakura and new white. But it is a piece that will set you back a pretty penny. I think this piece comes in at $3,100, which is of course insane, but at least it is a little bit more spacious than the Kelly Twilly, which had a really similar price tag to it. So if you're really into your Kelly inspired pieces and you're a true Hermes collector, this is something I thought you would enjoy having on your radar. And last but not least, let's move on to some of the latest Hermes bag launches, starting with the special order experience, because it is springtime, which means it's finally time for the special order season, even though Hermes has been a lot more flexible about allocating special order bags. In the past, you could only get a special order bag either in the fall or in the spring, whereas now they tend to have a few more bags going around throughout the year, but it is officially the special order season. So if you would like to place a request for a special order bag, do it sooner rather than later. I have an entire dedicated video on the special order experience, what to expect, how to go about it. So if you have no idea what it is, or you would like to get some more information, some more insights, some more tips, I will make sure to have a dedicated video linked up here for you. But long story short, it is a chance for you to place a request for your dream bag within some guidance, because you cannot just order whatever you want. You will have to choose from a color menu, but the experience is a lot more interactive now than it was in the past, because now it takes place on an iPad. So you actually get a mock-up of the bag that you're designing. So you have a little bit more of an idea for what you're getting yourself into, but I discuss all of that in the dedicated video of mine. But the special order season is coming, so if it's something that you would be interested in taking advantage of, make sure that you ask your boutique about it. And with that, let's move on to some of the bags that are available directly from the shelves. Obviously, these east-west oriented bags have been quite popular, including the Constance Elan, which was around before. Then it was discontinued for a few years, and it recently came back into production and it's available now. So if you love an east-west bag, and if you have always loved the idea of the Constance but you could never get on board with the proportions, or you wanted one that was slightly more delicate looking, there is the Constance Elan that is available now in a ton of different colors, predominantly in Epsom. But if you're looking for something a little bit more subdued, but a bag that still comes with a longer shoulder strap and a shoulder strap that's adjustable, obviously you can play around with the shoulder strap of the Constance. You can either double it, which allows you to carry that bag under your arm, or you can pull out the strap, and the strap on the new Constance Elan I think is slightly longer than it was on the original Constance Elan, which on most people would allow you to carry this bag crossbody quite comfortably. But if you're looking for an actual adjustable shoulder strap and a bag that's not so much in your face, you will be happy to see the Collier Dattelage bag, which has a very beautiful curved shape to it. It's inspired by a harness of the same name. As I mentioned, it comes with an adjustable leather strap and a leather tab fastening, which was first seen on the runway. It is an incredibly beautifully crafted bag. It's all about the details. It has this exaggerated piping running along the bag. It has this really simple but exquisitely crafted leather tab detail. There are several pockets on the inside. It also has a pocket on the back, and it also features these equestrian inspired rings on the side, which is how the strap is attached to the body of the bag. It's really just a piece of art, but it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. If you love the iconic look of the Birkin, the Kelly, or the Constance, I don't think it's something you'll appreciate. But if you're looking for something a little bit more understated, under the radar, subdued, but something that still looks and feels like $1,000,000 because of the details, this is a bag that's available now in a handful of different neutral shades. I've seen this in gray, in a taupe, and maybe in black. I think on the runway it was first shown in box leather, but I have only seen it in Epsom so far on shelves and in store. Obviously the Collier Dattelage bag is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, especially considering the steep price, and neither will this upcoming bag. It's a bag style that has been out for a while, but it's available in a new color for the current season, which is the Bolide on wheels, which is now offered in Cray and Vert Vertigo, which is a really special combination. It is a true collector's piece. Of course, it is inspired by the shape of the mini Bolide, but it features actual functioning wheels, which would allow you to use this bag as a tiny little skateboard. If you're a true Hermes connoisseur and a collector, this bag can be yours for, I think the current price of this bag is like 13,500 euros, if I'm not mistaken. It's available in Epsom, as I mentioned, in a new color. And speaking of very special pieces and fun takes on iconic shapes, I think this bag was supposed to launch for 2024. It was initially part of the men's runway collection, but of course, as most, or I should say as all Hermes pieces, anyone could buy this bag regardless of which department you usually shop. And what's special about this bag is that you can either carry this vertically or horizontally. You can play around with the strap and you can move it depending on what orientation you prefer, which I do think is really a game changer. And it is the Kelly Multipocket To Go, which is available in Epsom. Initially, it launched in black box and black Epsom leather, but for this current season, it is being introduced in some additional colors. So I have seen it in the color blue, in Vert Vertigo. As I mentioned, black was the original color, but the most eye-catching, in my opinion, is this bag being introduced in gold, both with gold and with palladium hardware for the humble price of 7,000 $7,000. So again, it's not for the faint of heart, but at least for $7,000, you're not just getting one Kelly twist closure, but you're actually getting three, because this bag features three different compartments, each one with its dedicated Kelly twist closure. So you have one compartment that is meant for your Hermes lipstick or lip balm. You have a slightly larger case, which they say should fit an AirPod or your keys. And then you have the largest pocket, which should fit your phone, cards, and a couple of smaller bits. So if you're into a really casual but incredibly cool looking utilitarian satchel, this could be a fun piece to play around with. To me, it feels like a cooler, bolder take on something like the Petite Ma. And while we are on the topic of Petite Ma inspired trunk bags, the Neo Medor bag is also out now, which is a new take on their original Medor clutch bag, which I was a big fan of back in the day. It's not something I ever added to my collection, but it was an incredibly beautiful, elegant clutch bag, which is now available in a trunk hardshell take in goatskin with palladium hardware. And last but not least, for the lovers of picotin, there is a new picotin on the block, even though it's the classic traditional picotin 18, but it is offered in a new finish. We are getting the picotin 18 in canvas, but with some really unique three-dimensional embroidery that makes me think of tweed. I mean, Hermes rarely, if ever, uses tweed, especially on their bags. But if you love the texture and the look of tweed, this is as close as you can get to tweed with Hermes. There are two different embroidery motifs that you can find this picotin with. One that has a slightly more sort of checkerboard inspiration to it, and one that features a pinstripe detailing. There are two different colorways in both motifs. There is one that combines fauve with blue Zanzibar, and one that combines fauve with a pop of pink, which I think is actually quite special if you're looking to add some unique textures, some really special finishes to your bag collection. These are certainly quite special, and I love the fact that they look like tweed. If you know me, you know that I love a bag in a special finish like suede or tweed, and again, it's not something that you see from Hermes often, so the fact that they are doing this for spring summer is really quite special. But this brings us to the end of today's video on what to buy from Hermes in April. I really hope you enjoyed it and you got something out of it. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and let us know in the comment section what pieces you're currently eyeing and what you think about the pieces discussed in today's video. I would love to hear your review. I really appreciate you being here and watching, and I will see you back here with a new video really soon.